The pursuit of environmental justice could bring the state of Maine to a sludge-pocalypse, an environmental collapse. This is insane. It's not insane. It is what it is. All right, from the Maine Wire, dateline March 10th, 2023, we got the sludge-pocalypse. Maine was brought to the brink of a man-made environmental disaster this week, a potential catastrophe that threatens to spill thousands of tons of human waste into Maine's waterways. What could possibly go wrong? What could possibly go wrong? At the center of the crisis is the Casella Waste Systems, the company that operates the state-owned Juniper Ridge landfill in Old Town. They process thousands of tons of sludge from municipal waste treatment facilities across the state every month, but announced last month that would have to reduce the amount of sludge it accepted by 60%. Why? We'll talk about that. As a result, municipal officials are dealing with a sudden glut of sludge and nowhere to put it. The emergency available options are to send it to New Brunswick, Canada, but it's very expensive. Let's see. People familiar with the sludge crisis tell the Maine Wire that the Maine's elected officials, especially Carney, Senator Anne Carney from Cumberland, and she's obviously a left-wing fool. I mean, there's no other way. A highly educated idiot. Intellectual yet idiot. That's what Nicholas Nassim Taleb calls him. Are to blame for approving environmental justice laws in 2022 that are now going to have to the unfortunate and entirely predictable consequence. A temporary solution has been found, but Maine is not out of the woods yet because they still have a genuine sludge-related environmental catastrophe on their hands. The full story begins with a passage of 2 environmental laws, because environmentalists are so freaking smart. Just ask them, they'll tell you. It's illustrative of how well-intentioned laws look. Can we stop saying environmentalists are well-intentioned? They're not. They're not well-intentioned at all. They're freaking evil. They're commies. Environmentalists are commies. Just always remember that. Let's start with sludge. Sludge is a byproduct that comes from facilities that treat human waste. If your toilet is hooked up to municipal sewers, you are using sludge. You're putting sludge in the state of Maine, or I'm a septic, but that's got to be dumped someplace too. To treat the waste, they extract the water, they strain it, they add chemicals like chlorine, they aerate it, put oxygen in it, and run a few other processes on the material. What emerges from that is a mud-like greenish-brown substance we call sludge. Well, unless you're taking your dookies in a compost toilet, you are contributing to the problem. Much of the sludge is transferred from wastewater treatment facilities to landfills. The toxicness of the sludge only grew in the human imagination when it was discovered that sludge, like millions of things people in Maine use every day, has a high concentration of PFAS, some perfluor, I can't pronounce that, some kind of chemical. PFAS are large molecules used in myriad manufacturing processes, which means they've been found almost everywhere. The harms of PFAS have been written about at length by environmental activists, but because PFAS is in a sludge, because PFAS is in people. And when you're pooping out PFAS. Shocking. No one disagrees that the chemical can cause severe problems. Like Aaron Brockovich says, it's lowering sperm counts and reducing penis size. Okay, has she measured that? These people are freaking idiots. All right, but here comes Janet Mills and Senator Anne Carney. They passed 2 bills relating to sludge in landfills, all right, both which your idiot governor, Shilly Millie, signed last April. For years, sludge was used as a fertilizer on farmland, which inadvertently poisoned the land with PFAS. Several farms were found to be contaminated with PFAS after using sludge as fertilizers, and nearby woodland critters as well. So legislative, the bill in 1911 made it so only approved landfills like Casella's could accept the sludge, and sludge-related product could never be used as fertilizer. As a result, Casella's intake of sludge increased by 15%, over 1,000 tons of sludge a month. Most everyone agrees that PFAS-laced sludge shouldn't be spread on Maine farmland, but the consequence was after the law took effect, Juniper Ridge had a sludge surplus. What do we do with the extra sludge? At the same time, lawmakers also approved LD 1639, a bill sponsored by idiot Carney that stopped construction debris from being brought to Maine and deposited in Maine landfills because it's coming from environmentalists. Environmentalists rallied around the idea of stopping companies in Massachusetts from exporting their waste to Pine Tree State. Yeah, I would be honest. Yeah, Massachusetts, massholes. But the law had the unintended consequence of reducing Casella's ability to safely incorporate sludge into his landfill, which is part of the reason they had to stop accepting deliveries. Jeff Hanley was a former Republican lead on the Committee on Environmental and Natural Resources and said the situation currently unfolding was obvious when the bills were passed, and he warned that was going to happen. Because of the idiotic laws and these boneheads making laws to make themselves feel good, we are now at the edge of an environmental disaster. Jeff was termed out of the legislature last year. Hanley, the good guy, worked 20 years at Sappy, including 7 years in landfill management. But he said his expertise was ignored by Carney and the other lawmakers when it came to passing environmental laws because he only has a high school degree, so he doesn't know anything. They're all much smarter than me, and they went ahead and passed feel-good legislation. Might not feel too good soon. But Carney has a degree from Haverford College, rich girl, Harvard, and the University of Maine Law School. I mean, she's never freaking dug a ditch. Anne Carney has never done anything worthwhile in her life except be educated, intellectually yet idiotic. She said, we're passing this in the name of environmental justice. It's the right to be protected from environment pollution and live and enjoy a clean and healthy environment, regardless of ancestry, race, religion. The whole thing's so freaking stupid. All right, so let's... In practice, the law limited the ability of Resource Waste Services, a Lewiston-based company, to provide Juniper Hill with processed construction materials that Casella uses to stabilize his landfill. Sludge is totally unstable by itself, so keeping it safely stored in landfill requires a bulking agent, construction debris. The bulking agents from construction debris are particularly effective at stabilizing sludge. Without enough of the bulking agent from debris or other sources, building a landfill is like building a pyramid of jello. Oh my goodness. Casella's available oversized bulking agent decreased by 14%, and the amount of sludge they were supposed to come in increased, they say, by 15%. Now, but Casella is not legally required to accept sludge, and because they can no longer deal with the increased volume of sludge safely, they started limiting shipments from municipal waste treatment centers, which caused them a backup of sludge at those same facilities. Like Hanley, Casella warned precisely this scenario would happen if they passed these stupid laws. They said, Casella representative said, if you pass this stupid law, you're going to have a reduction in the ability to dispose of wastewater sludge at state-owned landfill. If a replacement source can't be found, the facility would have to limit the amount of sludge accepted for disposal, which could be devastating for the 9 Dragons paper mill and municipalities across the state that rely on the facility for the disposal of wastewater sludge. Before the legislature got involved, the sludge arrangements made everyone money. Massachusetts-based entities paid Resource to accept the construction debris. Resource employed 40 miners to process the debris, and Casella got paid to accept Resource's recycled materials, which were then used to secure the landfill and receive the sludge that you take when you take a dookie. The lawmakers, convinced of the moral imperative that Maine no longer accept construction debris from Massachusetts, passed the bill without offering an alternative plan to deal with the sludge. It's kind of like passing, we're going to be on renewable. You don't have the battery capacity. It doesn't matter. We're going to be on renewable. And what if that doesn't work? Because it won't. It doesn't matter. We're going to be on renewable. We're not the only bright people, dude. I mean, come on. The collapse is imminent. There's no other way around that. Casella no longer accepting sludge shipments of its Old Town facility. Waste treatment facilities across the state are also taking extreme steps to store the backed up sludge. Farmington has a dumpster full of sludge awaiting processing. I admit that dumpster is fantastic. Other treatment facilities, for the most part, are relying on wastewater storage tanks. The problem with that is that these tanks could potentially overflow into Maine's waterways. A danger that could be exacerbated by a massive rain event. You guys in Maine, you vote for these idiots. The stormwater treatment plants are used primarily to collect stormwater during heavy rains. If you have a big rainstorm, these surge tanks can't be shut off. They'll overflow in the rivers. You're going to have a lot of sewage treatment plants in Maine. They're going to be in very dire circumstances if we have a big spring runoff. Another Republican currently on the Environmental Committee was more optimistic about Maine's capacity to deal with the current sludge. Let's see. In the recent days, this guy, so Bileski, has been immersed in sludge, figuratively. He talked with the state officials. He's visited wastewater treatment plants. He said LD 1911 had to happen given the state has learned about the danger of PFAS, but acknowledged that the two laws contributed to the current sludge glut. That had to happen. The problem is dealing with it now. He says he's confident the state will come up with a solution before the amounts of sludge goes beyond crisis levels. Well, what's your thought? Likewise, he's confident that Maine's treatment facilities aren't at a risk of major environmental incident so long as policymakers act quickly. And Maine doesn't have a big runoff rainstorm. There's a solution. We need to get away from using construction debris as a bulking agent and use more natural resources. Like what there, guy? What's your solution? Anyway, so they're blaming the company, questioning Casella's motives for refusing to accept additional sludge. He said the company's decision was in the best interest of everyone in the state. An unstable landfill could have caused serious health and environmental concerns, and they'd be sued. In the real world, you're not going to get a landfill engineer out here to spend 7 days collecting data on this. We've seen landfills collapse. People have died. These are real-time decisions made by people with real expertise. To insinuate they're making these decisions based on politics is stupid. He said lawmakers could have avoided the current crisis by prolonging the date in order to find backup resources, but they didn't. You have activist legislation being jammed down the pathway, and people aren't listening to people that are actually doing the work. Right now, the short-term solution, look at this other idiot Republican, Sobelski. He's like, oh, we had to do it, dude. We had to do it. We had to because the pressure was on. Pressure's on because we're not smart enough to inform people what the hell's happening. So we had to do it. We had to do it. But you have no storage facilities. You have no backup plan. So right now, the backup plan is truckloads of human waste up to 90,000 per day going into New Brunswick. An expensive temporary arrangement. If that becomes a new normal, so would the doubling or more of municipal sewer bills, and how about the trucks on the road with sludge? That's the environmental concern right there. 90,000 gallons a day on the highways. And we don't like pipelines either, remember that. Sustainable long-term fix. In response to Sobolewski's point that Casella should consider using natural resources as bulking agent, Weld said, the guy from Casella, said that arrangement would also come with trade-offs. Wood chips are less effective as a landfill bulking agent than construction debris. You freaking idiot. So Bileski, freaking fool. Where 3.5 truckloads of sludge can be stabilized with 1 truckload of oversized bulky waste, it takes 6 truckloads of wood chips, freaking Sobolewski. And now you're eating up landfill capacity. Switching to wood chips in addition to the increased costs and environmental impact on forests would undermine the key goals, which would ensure Maine's landfill capacity was being used efficiently. The cost of wood chips, there have been some suggestion that the state government could help offset that. It always comes back to the state government subsidies. And ultimately, those costs would fall on the taxpayers and ratepayers. And Casella noted in their legislative testimony about the bill that switching to wood mulch would cause the price of that product to increase massively as well, which have downstream effect on other industries. Never mind, you know what else would have downstream effect on? Renewable energy, because this is called biomass. Biomass is wood chips. So what's the solution? There's still an open-ended question. On February 24th, the Maine Department of Environmental Protection granted Casella temporary permission to store some sludge at its composting facility in Unity. But that will not account for the total sludge volume that needs to be dealt with on a longer-term basis. Currently, Casella has reduced the amount of sludge they will accept by roughly 4,000 tons a month, a 60% decrease. If Maine laws remain as they are, the company anticipates they'll accept 2,500 fewer tons of sludge than the pre-1639 levels. The long-term reality is that Juniper Ridge will process 38% less sludge than what happened when the stupid politicians got involved. So where does it go? The closure of the end-site landfill facilities like Juniper Ridge across the Northeast, the best hope for dealing with the crisis is the development of new technologies. Okay, that's great. But those technologies are a long way from realistically helping Maine cope with their sludge crunch time. For whatever solution policymakers arrive at must respect the fundamental reality that waste management occurs within an economic system that is responsive to economic incentives. There's no environmental sustainability without economic sustainability. You know what you should do? You should ban Taco Bell, because we know what happens. Every time you eat Taco Bell, you just go ahead and immediately put it into the water as a poop. That's a fact. This is a great article. Steve Robinson, that guy kicks ass, dude. I'm gonna post a comment. That's freaking media the way it should be done. I'm gonna post this. So good luck, Maine. Sludge is coming to your town. Can't wait to hear how it goes.